If you've watched Tucker Carlson's show, you might think this is a little bit racist. And usually that's because writers behind shows like that are racist themselves. So there's a scandal coming out of Fox News with Tucker Carlson's writer. It's juicy and disturbing. So the top writer for Fox News host Tucker Carlson has resigned from his position at the network after racist posts that he allegedly authored surfaced. Blake Neff, who is originally from South Dakota, had allegedly posted offensive material over a number of years on an internet message board called AutoAdmit that often contains bigoted content. The CNN report cites several examples of questionable postings on the site AutoAdmit with bigoted and derogatory comments about women, Black, Asian, and LGBTQ people. Black dudes staying inside playing Call of Duty is probably one of the biggest factors keeping crime down, he reportedly wrote a few weeks ago. He derided a woman for being an Asian mega shrew in posts that were all allegedly, thank you Daily Mail, allegedly like 40 times posted under a pseudonym. Neff stated how he wouldn't get LASIK from an Asian for free in response to an email thread with the subject line, "Would you let a jet black Congo N-word do LASIK eye surgery on you for 50% off?" Obviously all disturbing, but it just goes to show this is the underlying philosophy when Tucker Carlson spews dog whistles or sometimes just straight up whistles on his program, sometimes under the guise of isolationism, protectionism, but usually it's just abject cruelty and bigotry.
So there's a couple of things here that are really eye-catching. And so first off, when he's anonymous, oh my God, the gloves are off. And it's so interesting to see the coded language he uses for Tucker Carlson show, and then the non-coded equivalent of it when he's anonymous in the blogs. Remember, he's the head writer, and he has bragged that whatever Tucker Carlson is reading in the prompter, he wrote, okay? And when you're the head writer, that's largely true. And so when the gloves come off and he's anonymous, he talks about things like white libs and their university educated pets, referring to African Americans. Now, white libs, I don't care about. Conservatives say that all the time, okay? You're gonna call black people pets? Oof. Second thing that you see throughout is guys viciously racist towards blacks, but that's not all. And I think that the going after Asians is a little telling. So of course, Asians are not immune from racism. In fact, the Chinese are the only nationality ever banned from America. But these days, a lot of conservatives pretend to be pro-Asian. They say, "Oh, look, we're not racist. You know, the Asians are the model minority. They do well. They work hard. They assimilate. They got names like Steve and Dave and Bob. We like the Asians." No, they don't. And Steve Bannon also had a lot of vitriol towards Asians, and so does this guy. And it's part of the same resentment. The original resentment towards black folks in this country was, hey, now look, a lot of you white folks might be poor, the slave owner would say. You might have nothing, but hey, I'm gonna tell you at least you're better than blacks. And so I'm gonna use your resentment and direct it towards those minorities. Now, as Asians have become successful in this country, by the way, obviously not uniformly so, right? But as a lot of them have become executives of successful companies, et cetera, now that same resentment is weaponized towards Asians. And you see it in the anonymous blog posts. The third thing is, man, he gets super personal with particular women. Okay, and that's another telltale sign. You see it all the time, and you see it with Carlson's writer. And he picks on particular women. That one is not generalized. It's, hey, that woman, and she's an Amazon, and she's this, and she's overweight, and she's that. And then later, he admits that he does not drink much, and he also does not go out with women much, if at all. That's the least surprising thing I have ever heard in my life. Not just because of his awful opinions, but it's that resentment, the resentment. I used to be in charge and women used to desire me and I used to have the best jobs, but now the Asians and the blacks and I don't get as many women and the resentment is overwhelming as you read the blogs.
It's a part of a larger online toxic culture that I think you and I, Cenk, see daily, and I would say female hosts online see it even more so, especially if you're in a minority category. This 4chan online toxic culture where white men feel like they have a home. And that's kind of Tucker Carlson's show, except on cable news. It's more of a dying breed, but there is an enormous audience for it because Tucker is the #1 show on Fox News at the moment. And you can see that in the ratings.
Yeah, one more thing about the attacks against particular women. The women, when they found out, were like, what? Like, I'm Facebook friends with him, but I'm not that close to him. He's been attacking me for 5 years straight in this weird racist blog I had no idea about, because he probably wanted to date you and he's so mad that he can't, right? And so unfortunately this happens to strong women, especially online, all the time. To your point, Emma, with you, with Anna, with so many of our hosts and other progressives, there's this like, this feeling of inferiority that then breeds the sexism and the racism and all the other things that come along with it. And it's just pouring through Carlson's writer. So, but the thing is, the really important part of the story isn't what he thinks privately. It's that's the same exact guy. It's not like it's a different guy writing the blogs. It's the same guy who wrote those viciously racist and sexist things that also writes Tucker Carlson's script, but he's savvy enough to make it slightly more coded so that resentment and racism and sexism is more easily consumable by the masses. And man, do they love it. It's not just about the writers, not just about Tucker Carlson. He's the highest rated show on Fox News. The Fox News audience likes what they're reading there from this guy.
It's incel culture, right? And we've seen mass shootings and mass killings perpetuated by that same resentment and sexual frustration. And also it kind of reminds me of Stephen Miller and how he puts coded language into Trump's speeches and policies. But Fox is pretending to be outraged over this. Tucker Carlson himself has made it clear how Neff is integral to their writing process, but now Fox is trying to distance themselves from these words, and we don't know what Carlson's gonna say tonight on his program, but he plans to address this. Fox News said in an internal memo to employees that it strongly condemns this horrific, racist, misogynistic, and homophobic behavior. Neff's abhorrent conduct on this forum was never divulged to the show or the network until Friday, at which point we swiftly accepted his resignation. Make no mistake, actions such as his cannot and will not be tolerated at any time in any part of our workforce, read the memo from Fox News Media CEO Suzanne Scott and Fox News Media President and Executive Editor Jay Wallace. Neff attended Dartmouth College, a private Ivy League university in Hanover, New Hampshire. An article written about him in an alumni magazine spoke of the supposed influence he had on the show. Anything he's reading off the teleprompter, the first draft was written by me, says Neff. In the past 3.5 years, he has been working on the show. Neff explained that he would initially speak to Carlson each day about what to cover, but said that he shared similar views as the right-wing pundit on many issues. I've gotten used to what he likes and what he thinks about, he said. And let's see if this writing is evident in Tucker's show, because you might see some reflections of those resentments and vile thoughts in Tucker's programming.
To a remarkable degree, federal law enforcement is now driven by political imperatives. Certain kinds of so-called hate crimes top the list of priorities. They'll draw the FBI faster than you could summon the local police to your house during a home invasion, even when, as is so often the case, they turn out to be hoaxes. White supremacy is just that prevalent in America, they tell us. It's everywhere, except it's not. That's a lie. White supremacy is not ubiquitous in America. It's not a crisis. It's not even a meaningful category. It is incredibly rare. You could easily live your entire life in this country without meeting a single person who believes anything like that. Most of us have lived lives like that. I have. What is a crisis in America, and a growing crisis, is left-wing extremism and violence. This matter is now more popular than either major political party. So don't be surprised when they come for your church. Why wouldn't they? No one is stopping them. This may be a lot of things, this moment we're living through, but it is definitely not about black lives. And remember that when they come for you, and at this rate, they will. We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, they tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided. In the year 2000, Hazleton's population was 2% Hispanic. Just 16 years later, Hazleton is majority Hispanic. That's a lot of change. This pace of change makes societies volatile, really volatile, just as ours has become volatile. That's happening all over the country. The culture their parents and grandparents had built evaporated. Overall, this is the least racist country in the history of the world. Millions of Africans want to move here. Many already have. Our last president was black. What are you talking about?
So in the blogs, he clearly says that black people are inferior, prone to violence. Every racial epithet you could imagine. On George Floyd, he said he's a piece of crap, but he used the other word. George Floyd is a piece of crap with a long criminal record, okay? And then they pretend, we care that George Floyd was killed. Meanwhile, his real opinion is, he was a criminal, he had it coming, like all of them, right? But what white supremacy? I don't see any white supremacy. And he just writes it, and I'm super curious what Tucker Carlson is going to say. He said he never met a white supremacist his whole life. It turns out his head writer is a white supremacist. So is he going to say, oh, my bad, I didn't know that. My God, I feel awful that I wrote things like the immigrants will not replace us, which is the exact same thing as the Jews will not replace us that the Nazis used. My God, I feel bad saying that white supremacy wasn't real when it turns out it was inside my building and writing my scripts. Or is he going to be like, whatever, no big deal. So of course, he called them the N-word. So what? So what? So what? And he thinks Asians and blacks shouldn't have any jobs, and that women should be harassed by random people on the internet and threaten their life. So what? So what? Okay, that's how he normally reacts. I think this time, my guess is he's going to do something in the middle. He can't say so what because he actually risks getting fired now. Okay, now at the same time, his audience loves the racism. So he can't do a full mea culpa and admit the guy's a full-blown racist and that he was super happy to have him write his scripts with coded language of that same racism. So he's probably gonna pretend like, oh golly gee, was he? I didn't know. But I would change a lot of the scripts to be slightly less racist. I called them poor and dirty and they ruined the country, but we wouldn't call them the N-word or other forbidden magic words. So not guilty. And probably that'll be plenty enough for Fox executives who like the money that it brings in, and plenty good enough for the people who know that they're racist, but don't want to admit it. When you sign up for a spend and save account at aspiration.com/TYT, we will plant 10 trees. Let's save the planet together.